From a teen to a titan, here's your look at the brand new McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse Titans Nightwing. Dick Grayson began his crime-fighting career as the original Robin, Batman's protege and crime-fighting partner. An expert acrobat and skilled fighter, Dick eventually left the nest and ventured out on his own as a new hero called Nightwing. His childhood experiences as a circus acrobat and trapeze artist make him extremely agile. He is a superior fighter and a highly skilled martial artist who has personal training with Batman. Nightwing is a keen detective, a natural leader, and a strategist with advanced knowledge of a variety of technologies. Before we see what's new with Nightwing, let's first grab the tape measure just to see how tall the figure stands. While I'm as well doing this, I'd like to thank the folks over at McFarlane Toys that provided not only the leader of the Titans, but all the rest of the remaining Titans, as through the series of reviews that will follow Nightwing here, we're going to be building ourselves a bath of Beast Boy. Give me a spit all over you. Nightwing, though, in this case, stands 7 inches in height. Yes, he does. Or the figure's going to be about 17.5 centimeters tall. Not the first Nightwing, no. This was the first Nightwing that we did get from the DC Multiverse line. Comparing the two figures, while they are sharing similar styles of suits, the newer Nightwing does benefit from more vibrant colors, not only in the skin tone of his face, but also the symbol of Nightwing on the front of his chest. It's to note as well that this Nightwing symbol does carry on down the stripes down the sides of his arms, whereas the original Nightwing only had it carried across his shoulders. Another figure we can also bring in, a little bit more bulkier of a Nightwing. Here's also what the figure looks like with the Gotham Knights Nightwing. Whether you like the design of these suits or not, it does make for a little bit more of a fuller Nightwing when you compare it against the newer one. And I also thought it would also be fun, seeing as he was a Robin after all. Here's what he looks like with the recently looked at, if I can get him to stand, the recently looked at gold label edition Dick Grayson Robin. Now, if you were to exclude the trading card, and you were also to exclude the display stand, and even to exclude the Build-A-Figure piece for Beast Boy, then really Nightwing doesn't have any accessories to call his own. We're going to talk more about that in a moment. Be aligning it back just a little bit, though. First, the figure comes included with a trading card. And I love the look of this trading card. He is carrying around Eskrima sticks. That's one thing to note about this card that isn't unfortunately present here with this Nightwing. Again, we're going to talk more about that in a moment. Down below, you can see that it does have Titans down below Nightwing. Flip it around to the back. Real name is Richard Dick Grayson, with a good juicy read-up. You can read for yourself if you don't prefer to read juicy read-ups. Simply just go back, rewind to the beginning of this video, as it's the same thing I read to all you guys, the viewing audience. You're welcome. Nice looking trading card. I'm going to put that with the rest of mine. Figure, like I said, already comes included as well with a display stand. A couple little hairs there on the top, but you still have a DC logo printed down below here. One neighboring peg up to the corner that's going to peg on to the nice undersides of his feet. Choose which side you'd like to have this pegged onto. We're going to bring that also back, probably for final looks. As I already mentioned, though, other than really just a Build-A-Figure piece for Build-A-Figure Bath Beast Boy, that's a lot of B's. That's the only thing he comes included with when it comes to accessories. The actual base itself, I guess the base for where we're going to be building from Beast Boy. As for a torso, I mean, when you just have it compared along with Nightwing, how big Beast Boy is going to be. Of course, we still got to put on arms, still got to put on legs, still got to put, of course, his head on. That's going to allow him to look around and see exactly where he's going. Nice looking torso, though. At least it gives us a place to start. Going to move that also to the side. Like I said, though, the figure doesn't come included with any other accessories, which I have to admit is a bit of a bummer. If we were to, say, bring back in the original Nightwing that we had to look at, which I think is still fine. It's for a figure for this time period, when they first started doing the DC Multiverse figures, I think it's still a Nightwing that holds up well to this day. The thing about the figure, though, is on the back of it, there were clearly sections that hold Eskrima sticks, and the figure came included with a pair of them. Unfortunately, with the newer Nightwing, not only does he not include Eskrima sticks, but he doesn't also include the necessary storage on the back of his body. So if you did want to pillage Eskrima sticks from another Nightwing and have it simply displayed with this one, you can't. Not only does he not have hooks on the back of his body, but he also doesn't even have gripping hands to hold Eskrima sticks either. I suppose you could technically pull these off, as it looks like they're sharing similar pegs, replace the hands around, but what you're then going to be missing, unfortunately, is the nice continuation of this bright blue that goes all the way down his sleeves and into his gloves. But there's that option available as well if you want to have the figure displayed with the Eskrima sticks. Body-wise, while we're certainly holding the two, it doesn't look like they've shared anything between the two figures. I thought maybe, for example, forearms, but even like the forearms are a much more smoother sculpt. It doesn't have the noticeable straps around the forearms like the original Nightwing had. Torsos are completely different with one another, and of course, obviously, the head sculpt is going to be very much different as well. The original Nightwing, while still fine for its time, and still actually is a great-looking figure, was a much larger-looking head compared to the newer Nightwing that we get right now. Putting this figure down, we're going to go back probably to this Nightwing in a second. Head sculpt-wise, I really like the look of this one. He's got a good smirk across his face, so it's not just a neutral head sculpt. He does have several hairs across his forehead, draping all down. I almost kind of feel like I would have shortened the hairs just a little bit. I almost feel like they're a little bit too long and covering up so much of his face. This head sculpt actually would work really well for a trickster as well. I can't imagine they're probably going to be reusing these molds for villains, but if they ever got the chance to make use of a trickster, I think they could easily use this type of head sculpt and just like retool the hair, if anything. You can see that he does have the outlining around his eyes. His eyes really are less white, as they're sort of more of a grayish blue. I guess they didn't want to have the eyes so vibrant and white. One thing also with this skin tone is just to bring this one in. While there's a lot more vibrancy, I think, to the color almost has in front of camera here a little bit more of a yellowish tint to it. I would tell you probably in first glance, having this straight in front of me, it does actually look a little bit more peach in color, but for some reason the camera seems to be picking up a little bit more of the yellows. I think the head sculpt is really good on this one. If anything, I would just say maybe shorten the hairs a little bit. Speaking of the hairs, by the way, the hairs are actually separate pieces. They're not stuck to his face. So I suppose if you want to give him a little bit of a hair trim, you probably could cut these individual hairs and make the hair just a little bit shorter if you prefer. Yeah, the head sculpt and the hair sculpt overall is pretty good on this figure. Continuing then down from that, you've got basically just an all-black molded figure with, again, bright blue striped down the sides for his sleeves. And he also has the blue carried across, connecting the corners of his shoulders with the Nightwing symbol in the middle. Like the earlier ones we looked at before, this is actually sculpted in. They haven't simply just painted this on. And even like the stripes themselves, while this part seems painted, even like the shoulder area as well, I think it's pretty seamless between the molded of the plastic and the actual paint that they use down the sides of his sleeve. This is still painted, but I think it's pretty seamless, short of the fact that, yeah, the socket joints are about the only thing that's going to be breaking up a little of the mold. If you bring the forearms forward, or I should say you bring the shoulders forward like it did do on the one side, you can kind of keep it a little bit more consistently blue. It just means that, if anything, his arms are going to be a little bit leaning forward or lunging forward. He does have the sculpting there on the back of his body, but if you don't mind the fact that this is going to be broken up, that's not really going to be part that you're going to be seeing on the figure anyways. I would really recommend just kind of bring the shoulders around and keep a really more consistent blue across from shoulder, across the front of his chest, and then down the side of his other sleeve. The rest of the figure's body is all really kind of kept and relegated just to molded plastic. Still, the plastic itself is really done well. I mean, the one thing I do think that they've really improved upon when it comes to these DC Multiverse figures, that maybe wasn't the case when we looked at the original ones before. There was always really a definite cut right here where the top of the torso looked very much separate from the mid-abdomen area, and then the waist that would be down below that. I think with the newer figures, they've done a better job of giving you sort of a consistent shape. And while it does look a little bit cut right here, we can clearly see like the waist is a separate piece from the rest of his torso above. I still think it's a little bit more fluid. It looks a little bit more shaped properly, so it looks like it's a continuation. And it doesn't have as much the breakup that the original Nightwing would have had. Again, like, he's very narrow when it comes to everything on his body. Very narrow kind of thighs, very tapered off, like lower calf areas. And the only thing that really is colored, other than just the top of his torso, is the little striping of blue that he has around the bottoms of his feet. As already mentioned, the figure does have pegals on the undersides of his feet as well, so you can make use of a display stand. It is, after all, included with the figure after all. For the figure's articulation, let's start with his head sculpt. Head on Nightwing, the newer Nightwing, does rotate all the way around. Head does look down. Does look up, and actually really in both departments he has a good wide range of motion. I mean, he can look up pretty high and equally well low. The head does also rock back and forth also as well. As for the shoulders no problems whatsoever. Bring those out at 90 degrees. You can take those arms, rotate them all the way around. And again, he does have that socket joint that allows the crunch forward on the shoulders, or you can also bring them back as well. Bring them, as already mentioned, bring them a little bit more forward, gives you a little more of a consistent blue. So you might want to just do that if you want. Arms rotate again all the way around. You can swivel at the bicep. The figure does possess a double hinge on the elbow, and then the hands rotate all the way around, hinging back and forth there as well. Upper torso is on a very generous ball joint. Just below this part of his waist, there is a secondary ball joint for his abdomen. Legs do split out, once again, seem to be relying on ratcheted joints. You can take those legs and move forward. You can move them back. It's a mild swivel at the top of the thigh, double hinge on the knee, and then back to the feet move up and down this way, an ankle rocker, and toe articulation as well. The one thing I would say about my figure as well is that it seems like this ankle is starting to be a little loose. I can't hope that it's going to get looser than what it is right now. And providing I got this guy on a display stand, I don't think I'm going to have really any problems getting this guy to stand. But overall, a nice looking Nightwing. Some would prefer maybe to beeline it back to the original Nightwing, like, for example, this one right here that we had a look at before. Again, for its time, it's not a figure that necessarily looks dated. I mean, to compare the two, it's just a different look for Nightwing. I don't think by looking at this one, automatically defaults this guy to a more outdated looking Nightwing. He's still a fine looking figure. And also, even with the Gotham Knights version, in both those cases, they still had sections on the back of their body to hold the Eskrima sticks. That's one thing that they have over top of the newer Nightwing. While he is a nice looking Nightwing, I do wish, though, that they could have put hooks on the back of his body to hold the Eskrima sticks. And while we're certainly in that mindset, I wish that they could have also included Eskrima sticks, as it seems to be the one thing that you always think of when you think of Nightwing. And while my plan for posing Nightwing here in final looks was supposed to be more heroic, some may say he actually looks like he's dabbing instead. It's one of those cases where it looks a little bit better on certain angles than others. That's what unfortunately you have to do when you get a figure that has not only no accessories, but he doesn't even have the necessary hands to hold accessories if you did want to pillage them from another figure. Sad is the case here with Nightwing. And while I do like the look of the figure, I do wish still that the figure could have come included with his Eskrima sticks and even hooks on the back of his body. If you were to do away with one of them, at least do away with hooks, though, on the back of his body. If you want to have a more consistently clean and consistently seamless look on the back of his suit, yeah, they could have left the hooks off, but at the very least, they could have included the Eskrima sticks. I don't even know if I would want to change the hands around either, because while I like the look of this Nightwing, I like also the fact that he does have the blue as a continuation onto his gloves. And if you were to simply remove these hands and swap them out with another earlier looked at Nightwing, you would just be defeating the purpose of having the stripe continue all the way down the figure's sleeves. Overall, a nice looking Nightwing. A good way also to start this series of reviews of the Build-A-Figure Beast is by looking at the figure, the leader of the Titans. What do you guys think of Nightwing? Let me know down below in your comments, in the comment section, what do you guys think of this figure? And once again, I'd like to thank the folks over at McFarlane Toys that did provide this sample. The starting samples of what will be a continuation theme, as we're going to be looking at the entire wave of Titans figures, building ourselves the Beast Boy along the ways. But again, a big thank you to McFarlane Toys for providing Nightwing here. What do you guys, again, think of the figure? Let me know down below in the comment section. And as well, if you guys enjoyed this video, want to hit with a like. If you guys are loving the content you guys are seeing and on board to see the rest of the Titans wave, then make sure you're hitting that subscribe button down below. Make sure you're turning on the bell notification, and make sure that you're coming back here, because we are going to be completing the rest of the Titans wave. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.